significance. What we have discussed till now are what are fundamental duties and how they got introduced, what is the committee that have recommended, and by 42nd Amendment Act we have fundamental duties. By 86th Amendment Act 11th fundamental duty was added, right to education. Now every parent should send their kid to the schools. All these things we have discussed. Now what is the relevance, what is the importance, are we truly following our duties, do we have any law in support of fundamental duties? This is the question. First thing, we have the duty. As you all know, there is no right without a duty. We always ask for rights but we neglect our duties, but duties are also equally important like our rights. To abide by the constitution in the sense, if you don't follow the rules of the constitution, we have various laws which are really important. For example, say you should respect judiciary, otherwise you have contempt of court act. We have contempt of court act. Say for example, according to article 17, abolition of untouchability is there. We have separate act for that, SC/ST Atrocities Act 1989. Like that, you are expected to follow the basic doctrines of the Indian Constitution, core values of the Indian Constitution. All the citizens of India are expected to abide by our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land or basic law of the land. Which is the supreme law of the land or basic law of the land. We have to respect our national anthem and national flag. American national flag can be printed in a t-shirt, but have you seen a t-shirt with Indian flag? It is banned. It is prohibited. You are not expected to do that. Can you sing your national song, national anthem, changing its tune? Jana Gana Mana Adhinayaka Jai Hai. 52 seconds means 52 seconds. You are not expected to change even its tune, whereas American national anthem can be sung as a pop song, not Indian national anthem. Okay, this is very important. And for that reason we have Flag Code 2002, National Honors Act 1971. Flag Code 2002, National Honors Act 1971. You cannot cut a cake in the model of Indian flag. It is banned. You are not expected to do that. So though they look like duties which are not enforceable, National Honors Act 1971 and Flag Code of India 2002 make it as a punishable offence. National Honors Act, honor, H-O-N-O-U-R, National Honors Act Flag Code. You are not expected to burn the national flag. It's a crime. Okay, you are not expected to burn the national flag. It's a crime. And there is a flag code. If some protocol person like Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, President dies, there is a process where you have to half moist the flag. There are various things. There are various things. Second thing, in India, according to our constitution, we have certain methods, only constitutional methods, democratic methods, non-violent methods. Violence in no way is permitted in India. Take for example Naxalism. Naxalism, core ideology, nobody questions the veracity of it. But the path they have followed, they are following, is strictly prohibited by our constitution. In the same way, tolerance, we always preach tolerance. Tolerance, because India is a land of unity in diversity. We preach tolerance. And according to IPC, we have section 124A, which makes sedition a criminal offence, and sedition is the only offence where without committing any bodily injury, one can get capital punishment. Even one can get death penalty if you go with sedition. Sedition means doing against the country. Section 124A of IPC. We are expected to maintain communal harmony and also brotherhood. And recent mob lynchings is really against the fundamental duties and constitutional principles. Mob lynchings are against fundamental duties and constitutional principles. To renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. You know Nirbhaya Act, you know POXO Act, you know Domestic Violence Act, all these things as is not to degrade women or disrespect women. We are expected to show respect and some dignity towards women. And as you all know, in India we have a famous saying, Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devata. Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devata. We are expected to follow that. And to protect and conserve environment, forests, lakes, wildlife. We have various acts, Biodiversity Act, Environmental Protection Act. We have various acts to protect environment. In the same way, forests and wildlife. Wildlife Protection Act. And we should have compassion over living creatures. This was missing in some cases in India. Example, Jallikattu. Example, Kambala. Kodi Pandalu, cockfights. All these things that shows that we don't have compassion over living creatures. So that we have to increase. And we have an act called Prevention of Cruelty Towards Animals Act. Prevention of Cruelty Towards Animals Act 1960. In pursuance of to have compassion over living creatures. And we also have Animal Welfare Board of India. We also have Animal Welfare Board of India. To safeguard public property and abjure violence. In case of any strike, in case of any agitation, we first throw stones, pelt stones against towards a bus or burn a train. We do something else like that. But public property belongs to all. Every citizen is expected to safeguard public property and to avoid violence. To develop scientific temper, spirit of inquiry, humanism and reform. You all know in India, we all believe in superstitions like, say, we have various superstitions like black magic, like say Jogini system, Devadasi system. We also have Sati. We are expected to be rational. We are expected to develop scientific temper. We are expected to be very rational. We are expected to be scientific, to uphold scientific temper. But unfortunately, we murder the people, we kill the people who are rationalists like Gauri Lankesh, Naresh Dabolkar, Kalburgi. We kill them. But we are expected to avoid superstitions and promote scientific temper. In India, you will be seeing in the newspaper, Vinayaka is drinking milk, or from Sai Baba is getting angry, his angry eyes, or something. One godman can take some Sivalinga from his mouth. These are all mythical things. As humans in the 21st century, we are not expected to believe in all these things. Okay, to develop scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. So we should develop that. And we should preserve and protect the rich diversity of our composite culture from different dances, tribal dances, various cultures, from Bihu festival to Onam festival, from Pongal festival to Kamakya temple, Ambubashi festival. We celebrate diversity in India and we have to preserve that diversity. We have to preserve the heritage also. And we have to send our kids to school, basic duty of the parents. And we should also intellectually develop ourselves, not only for our individual development, but also we should help the nation to rise to the higher levels of endeavor and achievement, so that internationally India will be recognized as a great power. So we all have responsibility towards us. This is the significance of our fundamental duties. Understood? This is what is our fundamental duty. Done. Yesterday we have discussed the significance of DPSPs, Directive Principles of State Policy. DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy. Today we are going to discuss the relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles. Today's topic, relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. First of all, this question which we are going to discuss today is the most important question for mains. Any mains, it might be civil services, it might be group 1, for any mains, the relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles is a very crucial topic, and if you can understand it in a single lecture, it means that you have very good standards in polity. Okay, so I'll try to explain in detail very slowly, very slowly. Kindly take running notes. I'll go very slow. Okay. According to the Constitution, fundamental rights are enforceable in court. When fundamental rights are violated, we can go to court. Fundamental rights are enforceable, whereas directive principles, that is DPSPs, are not enforceable. Fundamental rights are enforceable. Directive principles are not enforceable. In the beginning, the court used to give very literal interpretation, literal, literal interpretation to the text of the Constitution. Literal interpretation to the text of the Constitution. What do you mean by literal interpretation to the text of the Constitution? It means word to word. Whatever the word is there in the Constitution, follow it without any deviation. Follow it without any deviation. This is called literal interpretation of the Constitution. Okay. So, the very first case where there is a conflict between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy is Champakam Dorai Rajan versus State of Madras. The very first case, fundamental rights versus DPSPs, is Champakam Dorai Rajan versus State of Madras, where Article 14 and Article 46, Article 14 which is a fundamental right and Article 46 which is a directive principle, both are in contradiction, both have come into conflict. 14 versus 46, Article 14 versus Article 46, fundamental rights versus directive principles of state policy. Now remember, just try to recollect which I have explained. In Champakam Dorai Rajan case, Madras state government have given reservations for SCs and STs in medical and engineering colleges. If you go to the letter of the Constitution, right to equality is a fundamental right. You should treat everyone equally. You should treat everyone equally, as right to equality is a fundamental right. This is the text of the Constitution. And whereas giving reservations is against right to equality. Literally speaking, separately giving special concessions to few people is against right to equality. So, Champakam Dorai Rajan case, the petitioners argued in the Supreme Court saying that we have denied of right to equality because Madras state have given reservations. They said fundamental right article 14 got affected. Then Madras state government argued that we have given reservations as per article 46. We have given reservations as per article 46, which is a directive principle which asks the state to promote SC/ST welfare. To promote SC/ST welfare. Then the Supreme Court said, if you see the letter of the Constitution, fundamental rights are enforceable in court and directive principles are not enforceable in court. So Supreme Court said fundamental rights are primary over directive principles, and directive principles should run in accordance with fundamental rights. If there is a contradiction between fundamental rights and directive principles, fundamental rights will get a priority, not the directive principles. So Champakom Dorerajan is the first case where Supreme Court have directly said article 14 is more important than article 46. Fundamental rights are more important than directive principles. Till 1971. Till 1971, the same situation continued. Whenever there is a fight between fundamental rights and directive principles, Supreme Court and High Courts, the judiciary used to support fundamental rights, not directive principles. Till 1971. Here you should understand a simple thing. In 1966, we have our first female Prime Minister Indira Gandhi coming into power. You all know that Indira Gandhi is a very strong Prime Minister, and you all know her ideology, and you all know that she is the Prime Minister who introduced emergency nationwide in 1975. With all her odds, Indira Gandhi also have taken drastic steps and various astounding decisions, great decisions. What are those decisions? Important decisions. One is abolition of privy purses. Abolition of privy purses in the sense, say earlier the Maharajas, princely states, princes, they used to have privy purses and entirety of their money is exempted from taxation. Indira Gandhi abolished that. In the same way, Indira Gandhi also brought many socialist measures like nationalization of 14 banks at a single stroke. In 1969, the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi nationalized 14 banks. Nationalized 14 banks at a single stroke. So there were very great decisions, I can say, taken by Indira Gandhi towards social welfare and bringing economic justice to the people. And another important thing, change that was made in the Constitution by 25th Amendment Act 1971. Remember, one great change have come in the constitutional history of India, independent India, is 25th Constitutional Amendment 1971. In the year 1971, the Parliament of India passed 25th Amendment introducing Article 31C, inserting Article 31 capital C to the Constitution. Even in sleep you should remember 31C was added to the Constitution by 25th Amendment. 31C was added to the Constitution by 25th Constitutional Amendment. 31C. It is 31 capital C. It is 31 capital C. Now try to understand. What does this 31C says? 31 capital C, which was introduced by 25th Amendment, says whenever there is a conflict between the directive principles of 39 small b and 39 small c. Whenever there is a conflict between the directive principles of 39 small b and 39 small c and fundamental rights of 14, 19 and 31, 39 small b and 39 small c have primacy over fundamental rights of 14, 19, 31. By 25th Amendment Act, Article 31 capital C was added. In Article 31 capital C, it was mentioned that when there is a fight between directive principles of 39 small b, 39 small c and fundamental rights of 14, 19, 31, 39 small b and 39 small c are very important than 14, 19 and 31. Why 39 small b, 39 small c are very important? As I have discussed yesterday, ownership of material resources of the community should belong to all. Operation of economic system should not result in the concentration of wealth. Country's resources belong to everyone. The economic system should also be helpful to the poor and the needy. And when country takes a decision, you should also think about the common man. As Mahatma Gandhi said in his talisman, when you are in doubt, when self have become too much in you, recall the poorest and weakest man's face which you have seen in your life, and if you think that your decision is going to benefit him, and you can definitely go forward with that decision. So whenever a country is taking economic decisions, making a new economic policy, it should be helpful for the poor also. Operation of economic system should not result in concentration of wealth. Ownership and control of material resources of the community should belong to all, not to the few. These two articles for the first time have been given priority by 25th Amendment, adding 31C to the Constitution, though they affect 14, 19 and 31 of the Indian Constitution. This is what is the Parliament have done at that time, wherein which we have the Prime Minister called Indira Gandhi. Okay, and this was questioned. This amendment was questioned in Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala 1973. Whether making directive principles of 39 BC primary over 14, 19, 31 is a right argument or a wrong thing. Then the judges told in Keshavananda Bharati, do you support this? Making 39 BC important over 14, 19, 31? Yes. 39 BC are very, very important. Though they are directive principles, they are important than equality principle. So court said, see, 39 BC are important than 14, 19, 31. What have been done through 25th Amendment Act is right. It is right because it is for justice. It is for justice. Otherwise, rich will become more richer, poor will become more poorer. Court in Keshavananda Bharati case said it was right. Then after 1975, you all know, we had emergency. In 1976, during emergency, a very big constitutional amendment, also called as mini constitutional amendment, was passed. 42nd, a mini constitution have come into force. 42nd amendment. You know what happened? The Parliament through 42nd amendment again amended 31C. Parliament through 42nd amendment again amended 31C. You know what Parliament said? Not 39B and C. All directive principles are important over 14, 19, 31. See what happened? By 25th amendment, what they have done? 39BC are more important than 14, 19, 31. By 42nd amendment, they have made a change in 31C and said, not just 39B, 39C, but all directive principles from 36 to 51 are important than fundamental rights of 14, 19 and 31. This change was made in 42nd Amendment 1976. This change was questioned. In Minerva Mills versus Union of India. This change was questioned in Minerva Mills versus Union of India. Whether all directive principles are important over fundamental rights of 14, 19, 31. Then the judges told it is wrong. Not all directive principles are important. Only when 39BC comes in, 14, 19, 31 goes out. Only when 39B and 39C comes in, 14, 19 and 31 goes out. Even today, Minerva Mills versus Union of India judgment holds good. Whenever there is a conflict between directive principles of 39B and 39C and 14, 19, 31, 39B and 39C are important. And remember, only 39B and 39C are important than 14, 19, 31. Not all directive principles. Even today this holds good. Okay. In Minerva Mills versus Union of India, the Supreme Court said, harmonious relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles. Harmonious relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles is a basic structure of Indian Constitution. Harmonious relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles is a basic structure of Indian constitution. So this is the story of relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles. First of all, you should understand this. I will repeat again. In Champakum Dorai Rajan case, there is a conflict between Article 14 and Article 46. The Supreme Court said fundamental rights are more important than directive principles. The situation that all fundamental rights are given priority than all directive principles till 1971. In the year 1971, Parliament passed 25th Amendment and added 31C to the Constitution. In 31C, they have said that whenever there is a conflict between Article 39B and 39C and 14 1931, the directive principles of 39B, 39C are more important than 14 1931. This change was questioned in Keshav and Bharati case, but the court said giving priority to 39B and 39C is really important. It is correct. But by 42nd Amendment 1976, the Parliament said that all the directive principles are important than 14 1931. All. Then in Minerva Mills versus Union of India, this was questioned, making all directive principles important than 14 1931. But the Supreme Court said not all are important, only 39B and 39C are important, not all. And in Minerva Mills versus Union of India, the Supreme Court said harmonious construction or harmonious relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles is a basic structure of Constitution. As you all know, Part 3 of the Indian Constitution deals with fundamental rights. Part 4 deals with directive principles. Fundamental rights are enforceable in court of law. Directive principles are not enforceable in court of law. Fundamental rights are considered as civil and political rights. Directive principles are considered as socio-economic rights. Fundamental rights are considered as civil and political rights. Directive principles are considered as socio-economic rights. Fundamental rights start with negative statements. Thus, no state shall, the state shall not, no citizen shall, like that. So, fundamental rights impose restrictions on state action, impose negative obligations on state, whereas directive principles are positive statements. They ask state to do certain things. Fundamental rights are the means, directive principles are the ends. Fundamental rights are the means, directive principles are the ends. And in fact, we can say fundamental rights and directive principles, fundamental rights and directive principles put together, considered as the core of the Constitution, conscience of the Constitution. FRs and DPSPs put together, they are core, CORE, core of the Constitution and conscience of the Constitution. We can say one is the heart, the other is the soul. One is the heart, the other is the soul of the Constitution. Fundamental rights and DPSPs, directive principles of state policy, one is the heart and the other is the soul. And in fact, they should not be contradictory but complementary to each other. They should not be contradictory but complementary to each other. So this should be the conclusion. I am repeating, Part 3 fundamental rights, Part 4 directive principles. FRs are enforceable in court of law, DPSPs are not enforceable in court of law. Fundamental rights are civil and political rights. Directive principles are socio-economic rights. Fundamental rights impose negative obligations on the states. Directive principles ask positively to do the state something. They start with positive statements. Fundamental rights are the means, directive principles are the ends. They both put together constitute the core of the Constitution, the conscience of the Constitution. One is the heart, the other is the soul. They both should be complementary but not contradictory to each other. They both should be complementary but not contradictory to each other. This is the answer. Relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Duties. Listen. Fundamental duties are not there in the original Constitution. We don't find fundamental duties in the original Constitution. They were added by 42nd Amendment 1976. Remember this fact. In the original constitution, we don't have fundamental duties. We don't have fundamental duties. They were added by 42nd Amendment 1976. Just I will give a trick. 42, 4 plus 2 is equal to 6. 44, 4 plus 4 is equal to 8. 42nd Amendment 1976. 44th Amendment means 1978. Okay, that for these two amendments we can remember like this. So 1976 42nd Amendment. Fundamental duties were added by 42nd Amendment 1976. Rights and duties are the two facets of the same coin. Rights and duties are the two facets, F-A-C-E-T-S, facets of the same coin. In the socialist countries, they will give more priority. In the socialist countries, SOCIALIST, in the socialist countries, they will give more priority to duties rather than to the rights. They will give more priority to the duties rather than to the rights. I wish to tell you one thing here, you need not write in the notes. Mussolini, the Italian dictator who founded fascist party. Mussolini, the Italian dictator who founded fascist party in Italy, said, the only right which you have in our country is to do your duty. The only right which you have in your country is to do your duty. In fact, even in civil services, the only right which you have is to do your duty. First of all, you should do our duty. So seriously, this is very important. That's the reason why the fascism have built a very disciplined state. But if you see liberal democracies, people ask more about their rights and they don't much perform their duties. During emergency, as you all know, we had 42nd Amendment 1976. A committee was appointed called Sardar Swaran Singh Committee to recommend fundamental duties. A committee was appointed called Sardar Swaran Singh Committee to recommend fundamental duties. To recommend fundamental duties, a committee was appointed called Sardar Swaran Singh Committee. And now, the Swaran Singh Committee have recommended duties, and we have borrowed the idea of having fundamental duties from Soviet Constitution. The idea of fundamental duties was borrowed from Soviet Constitution. The idea of fundamental duties was borrowed from Soviet Constitution, that is Russia. SOVIET, Soviet Constitution. Okay. And remember, fundamental rights, if they are violated, we can go to court. If fundamental rights are violated, citizen can go to court under Article 32 and 226 and can file a writ petition. Whereas, if a fundamental duty is not performed by the citizen, as such the state cannot go for the court. Say for example, you have not performed duty A, duty B, state cannot go to court on you as such. But of late, there are many laws and policies made out of fundamental duties. Now almost most of the duties have their own set of laws attached with that. I will explain what are the laws, what is the significance. First of all, as citizens of India, not only as civil aspirants, you should remember our fundamental duties. Leave away civil's preparation. As citizens of India, you should remember our fundamental duties. First, I will explain you how I have remembered as a student when I am a student like you. See, as we have discussed many times, our constitution is the supreme law of the land. Our constitution is the supreme law of the land. To abide by the constitution, and respect national song, national anthem and national flag. This is the basic thing which we have, right? To abide with the constitution and respect national flag and national anthem. First fundamental right, because constitution is the first fundamental duty, because constitution is the supreme law of the land. And next important thing, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national freedom struggle for independence. What are the ideals which inspired our freedom struggle? Ahimsa, Satya, Dharma. All these things are our ideals, goals of India. Even in our freedom struggle, we have not followed Himsa Marga. We have followed only Ahimsa Marga. That is to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our freedom struggle. Always to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of the country. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of the country. You have the duty to protect your country, sovereignty of the country. There is a very famous song in Telugu. E desamegina endu kalidina Pogadara ni talli bhumi bharatini nilapara ni jati nindu gauravani. So wherever you go, you have to respect your motherland. You have to protect its sovereignty. You should not preach against your country. You should not go for sedition activities. Sedition means do against the country. Always protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of your nation. To defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. To defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Always you have to defend your country, and whenever it is necessary you have to do service to the nation. You should be ready to sacrifice for the nation. To promote spirit of brotherhood, transcending religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities. You might belong to different regions, different religions, different sections, but remember that we are all Indians. Transcending religious, linguistic, regional, sectional diversities, we should promote brotherhood, and we all should renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. We should all renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. We should always respect the dignity of women. To protect and improve environment, natural environment, forests, lakes, wildlife, and we should all have compassion over living creatures. As we live in this world, other living creatures also take birth and live in the world, and we should live with compassion. As humans, you all know we are all more rational, and we should live with compassion with others. To safeguard public property and abjure violence, we should protect public property and we should avoid violence. We are not expected to do violence. To safeguard public property and to abjure violence. Public property means bridges, tanks, roads, public buses, all these things we should safeguard. Trains, railway tracks, all public property we should protect. To develop scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. We should believe in rationality, not superstitions. To develop scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. To value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. In India as a country have diversity, more diversity than Europe as a continent, and we should value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Variety of cultures we have, and India is a conference and it's considered as a melting pot of various cultures. We should protect it. We should value and preserve it. And the nation, we should all strive to take the nation to the highest levels of endeavor and achievement, individually and collectively, so that our nation rises to the great heights. And the 11th fundamental duty, we have 11 fundamental duties. The 10 fundamental duties were added by 42nd Amendment, but the 11th fundamental duty was added by 86th Amendment 2002. The 11th fundamental duty was added by 86th Amendment 2002. Whoever is a parent or guardian whoever is a parent or guardian, shall send their ward or that is children to the schools who are between 6 to 14. 6 to 14 compulsory education to the children. These are 11 fundamental duties